Ladies and gentlemen, the most significant geopolitical shockwave of the decade in the Western Hemisphere has just been officially confirmed. The strategic landscape of Latin America has changed permanently overnight. According to an urgent press release issued by the Pentagon at 1400 hours Eastern Standard Time yesterday, the Department of Defense has confirmed United States Special Operations Forces, in a highly classified joint operation with federal intelligence agencies, have successfully executed the capture of Nicolas Maduro right in the capital of Caracas, Venezuela. Citing reports from Reuters and cross-referenced via the official defense.gov portal, the operation, codenamed Lightning Strike, took place in the early hours of Saturday, January 3, 2026. This is being hailed as one of the most audacious, complex, and high-risk operations conducted by the U.S. military since the raid on bin Laden. Immediately following the extraction, the President of the United States held a press briefing at the White House, declaring that Mr. Maduro is now in U.S. custody and is being transported to an undisclosed location to face charges from the Department of Justice. Simultaneously, the DOJ has unsealed a massive indictment, directly linking him to transnational narco-trafficking and corruption on an unprecedented scale. This event has triggered the highest level of alert at U.S. Southern Command. U.S. naval strike groups in the Caribbean are currently maneuvering into battle stations to anticipate any kinetic response from Venezuelan military remnants or their close allies. The world is holding its breath. Will Caracas turn into a war zone? How will other great powers respond to this decisive unilateral action from Washington? In today's in-depth 20-minute briefing, we are leaving the politics aside. We are deconstructing this operation through a strictly military lens. We will dive into the hardware profiles, the infiltration vectors of the special operator teams, and the naval warfare scenarios that could erupt in the next 24 hours. Welcome back to Naval Power and Tech. To fully comprehend the sheer magnitude of Operation Lightning Strike, we must peel back the layers of political headlines and examine the cold, hard mechanics of the military chessboard. This operation was not merely a raid. It was the ultimate stress test of the United States' distributed maritime operations doctrine against a sophisticated anti-access/area denial A2AD environment. First, let us establish the strategic context. The legal framework for this mission was established on March 26, 2020, when the U.S. Department of Justice unsealed indictment S-211-205. This document charged Nicolas Maduro and his inner circle with participating in a narco-terrorism conspiracy, converting the Venezuelan state into a criminal enterprise in league with the FARC. For 6 years, this indictment sat on a desk, a dormant weapon. Why? Because the tactical risk was simply too high. Caracas is not a soft target. Over the last decade, Venezuela has constructed one of the densest integrated air defense systems, IADS, in the Western Hemisphere, primarily supplied by Russia. The crown jewel of this defense is the S-300VM Ante 2500. Unlike the standard S-300, the VM variant is a tracked, highly mobile system designed specifically to counter ballistic missiles and cruise missiles. It utilizes the 9S-32 Grill Pan engagement radar, a multi-mode phased array system capable of tracking up to 6 targets simultaneously, with a detection range exceeding 250 kilometers. In addition to the surface-to-air threat, the Venezuelan Air Force, Aviación Militar Bolivariana, operates the Sukhoi Su-30 Mk2 Flanker G. This is a heavyweight, twin-engine air superiority fighter equipped with the NZOJA-1VP radar and R-77 active radar homing missiles, theoretically capable of engaging U.S. aircraft from beyond visual range, BVR. For years, the combination of the S-300VM on the ground and the Su-30 Mk2 in the air created an access denial bubble that deterred any conventional extraction plans. However, by late 2025, the strategic calculus shifted dramatically. Intelligence reports from USNI News and Jane's Defense Weekly began to highlight a catastrophic degradation in Venezuela's readiness. The protracted conflict in Eastern Europe meant that Russia could no longer supply the critical spare parts, specifically the AL-31F turbofan engines, needed to keep the Su-30 fleet airborne. Sortie rates plummeted. The S-300 radars, requiring constant maintenance of their traveling wave tubes and cooling systems, began to suffer from extended downtimes. The Iron Dome over Caracas had rusted. A frequency gap opened in the spectrum, and U.S. planners decided to drive a truck through it. Let's analyze the naval platform that facilitated this strike. It is crucial to note that the Pentagon did not deploy a Nimitz-class supercarrier for this operation. A 100,000-ton carrier is too loud, too visible, and signals war with a capital W. Instead, the U.S. Navy utilized the USS America, LHA-6, operating as a Lightning carrier. The LHA-6 is a revolutionary design in modern naval warfare. Displacing 45,000 tons, it abandons the traditional well deck found on amphibious assault ships to dedicate every cubic inch of internal volume to aviation support. It carries an enormous reserve of JP-5 aviation fuel and expanded ordnance magazines. By configuring the USS America with a heavy loadout of F-35B Lightning II jets, the Marine Corps created a pocket-sized aircraft carrier that possesses 80% of the combat capability of a supercarrier, but with a much lower political signature. The F-35B was the linchpin of the air superiority component. This short takeoff and vertical landing, STOVL aircraft, is not just a fighter. It is an airborne sensor node. Its AN/APG-81 AESA radar and distributed aperture system, DAS, allow it to soak up electronic emissions from Venezuelan defenses, geolocate the S-300 radar sites, and jam them using its onboard electronic warfare suite, the ASQ-239 Barracuda. In this operation, the F-35Bs likely flew sanitized, without external weapons pylons, to maintain maximum stealth, acting as the invisible shield for the infiltration team. Now, for the infiltration vector itself. The distance from the international waters of the Caribbean to the Miraflores Palace is approximately 20 to 30 miles, depending on the launch point. But the route is treacherous due to the coastal mountain range, the Cordillera de la Costa, which rises sharply from the sea. To navigate this terrain at night, undetected, required the MH-60M Black Hawk of the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, SOAR. These are not standard Army helicopters. The Mike model Black Hawk is a heavily modified beast. It features the YT-706 GE700 engines, providing 2,600 shaft horsepower each, allowing for extreme high-altitude, hot weather performance. Crucially, they are equipped with the AN/APQ-187 Silent Night Radar, a terrain-following/terrain avoidance radar that allows pilots to fly nap of the earth, literally feet above the tree line, in zero visibility conditions. This allowed the insertion force to mask their approach behind the radar shadow of the mountains, effectively using the Venezuelan geography against them. Supporting the Blackhawks were likely MV-22B Ospreys. While the Blackhawks are the door kickers, the Ospreys are the haulers. With their tilt rotor design, they offer the speed of a turboprop plane, over 300 mph, and the landing capability of a helicopter. In a lightning strike scenario, Ospreys would be loitering just off the coast, serving as forward arming and refueling points, FARP, or carrying quick reaction forces, QRF, in case the primary team got pinned down. On the ground, the operators from JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command, suspected to be a fusion cell of DevGRU, SEAL Team 6, and CAG, Delta Force, were operating with a technological overmatch that borders on unfair. Their primary advantage was the GPNVG-18, Ground Panoramic Night Vision Goggle. Unlike standard dual-tube goggles that offer a 40-degree field of view, like looking through toilet paper tubes, the quad eyes offer a 97-degree field of view. In a close-quarters battle, CQB environment like a presidential palace, peripheral vision is the difference between life and death. Furthermore, we must discuss the cyberkinetic interface. Reports suggest that minutes before the physical breach, a specialized unit from US Cyber Command executed an access operation against the SCADA systems controlling Caracas's electrical grid. This wasn't just about turning off the lights. It was about disabling the command and control nodes. Modern air defense networks rely on fiber optic links to share target data between radar sites and missile batteries. By severing the power and flooding the network with digital noise, the US effectively lobotomized the Venezuelan defense network, isolating each unit and leaving them blind, deaf, and dumb. To summarize the technical landscape, the US military brought a fifth-generation stealth ecosystem, F-35B, supported by world-class terrain-masking aviation, 160th SOAR, and equipped with the highest grade of night-fighting optics, GPNVG-18, to a fight against a decaying fourth-generation Soviet-era defense system. The disparity in kill chain speed, the time it takes to detect, track, target, and engage, was insurmountable. The Venezuelan systems were still warming up their radar tubes, while the US operators were already breaching the target doors. Now, let us move from the theoretical planning capabilities to the cold, hard reality of the ground war. Based on a reconstruction of leaked radio transcripts, eyewitness accounts from Caracas residents surfacing on social media, and official DoD timelines, we can now piece together the minute-by-minute execution of Operation Lightning Strike. This was not a chaotic brawl. It was a choreographed ballet of violence executed with blinding speed. H-hour minus chapter 10, 0150 hours local time. The airspace over the Caribbean Sea, specifically Sector Zulu 4, goes silent. Commercial air traffic controllers in Maiquetía report a sudden loss of secondary surveillance radar feeds. This was the first kinetic action of the night. The deployment of the MALD-X, miniature air-launched decoy. Launched from B-52s, loitering hundreds of miles away, these decoys flew profiles mimicking a massive US invasion force approaching from the east. This was the feint. The Venezuelan radar operators at the Strategic Command of Operations, CEOFANB, were glued to their screens, watching a ghost fleet of bombers that didn't exist, pulling their attention and their fighter interceptors away from the capital. H-hour, 02 hours. Total darkness engulfs the Miraflores district. The cyber attack authorized by U.S. Cyber Command hits the Guri Dam power distribution nodes. The streetlights die. The security cameras freeze. The electric fences surrounding the presidential complex deactivate. Inside the palace, emergency generators kick in, but there is a critical 45-second lag. In that 45 seconds, the Night Stalkers arrive. Low-flying MH-60M Blackhawks, running completely dark without navigation lights, utilize the acoustic shadows of the high-rise buildings to mask their approach. They don't flare to land. They execute a hover step maneuver directly over the internal courtyards. Fast ropes drop. 2:02 hours. The breach. Team Alpha, comprised of operators from the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DevGRU, hits the ground. They do not enter through the front door. Utilizing localized explosive breaching charges, they blow entry points through the reinforced walls of the West Wing, bypassing the primary kill zones established by the Presidential Guard. The sound of the explosion is the first warning the Venezuelan forces receive that the war has come to their doorstep. Inside, the environment is chaotic. The emergency lights flicker on, casting long, disorienting shadows. But for the U.S. operators equipped with GPNVG-18 quad nods, the hallway is as bright as day. They move in a flowing water formation, fluid, silent, and lethal. Resistance is encountered at the main stairwell. Elements of the Guardia de Honor attempt to set up a defensive position. The engagement lasts less than 6 seconds. The operators utilize flashbangs, NFDDs, and precise double taps. The difference in training is immediately apparent. The guards are spraying automatic fire blindly, while the operators are placing calculated shots. 0208 hours. The Stronghold. Team Bravo, a specialized element from Delta Force, reaches the primary residential suite. Intelligence provided by CIA assets on the ground had confirmed that target Geronimo, the operational code name for Maduro, was in the secure bunker level, not the bedroom. The team encounters a reinforced blast door. A mechanical breach is impossible. The breacher attaches a shape charge to the hinges. The detonation overpressures the hallway, blowing the door inward. The team floods the room. There is no negotiation. There is no reading of rights. The operators shout commands in Spanish. Manos arriba, suelo, suelo. Hands up, floor, floor. 0212 hours. Jackpot. The code word crackles over the encrypted satellite network. Jackpot, target secure. Nicolas Maduro is identified. He is physically restrained with flex cuffs and hooded. A quick biometric scan, likely a fingerprint or iris scan, is performed on site to confirm identity with 100% certainty. The confirmation is relayed to the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Pentagon and the Situation Room in the White House. But now, the mission enters its most dangerous phase. The element of surprise is gone. The hornet's nest has been kicked. 0215 hours. The reaction. The shock wears off. The Venezuelan military command realizes this isn't a coup. It's a foreign extraction. The 311th Infantry Battalion, loyal to the regime, begins rolling T-72B1 tanks out of the Fuerte Tiuna barracks, just 4 miles away. Their orders are simple. Level the palace if necessary. Nothing leaves. Simultaneously, man-portable air defense systems, man-pads, shoulder-fired missiles like the Igla-S are being distributed to militia units on the rooftops surrounding the palace. The airspace above Miraflores is rapidly becoming a deny-all zone. 0220 hours. The extraction. The ground force commander makes the call. Hot extraction. The original plan to leave via the courtyard is scrapped due to incoming mortar fire. The team moves the target to the secondary extraction point, the roof. This requires the MH-60Ms to perform a dust-off under fire. As the lead helicopter descends, it takes small arms fire from the surrounding apartment blocks. The door gunners on the Blackhawks open up with M134 miniguns. The rate of fire, 3,000 rounds per minute, creates a wall of lead, suppressing the militia positions. The sound is deafening, a continuous ripping noise that echoes through the valley of Caracas. The operators bundle the high-value target, HVT, into the cabin. The bird lifts off immediately, banking hard to the north, pulling 2 Gs as it accelerates to escape velocity. 25 hours. The gauntlet. As the formation exits the city limits, the Venezuelan Integrated Air Defense System, IADS, finally wakes up. A Buck M2 missile battery acquires a lock on the trailing helicopter. The radar warning receivers in the cockpit scream. The pilot releases chaff and flares, magnesium decoys burning at 2,000 degrees to distract the infrared seeker of the missile. At this precise moment, the guardian angels intervene. An EA-18G Growler, orbiting at 25,000 feet, unleashes a high-power jamming beam directly at the Buc's fire control radar. On the Venezuelan screens, the target simply vanishes. The missile loses lock and self-destructs mid-air. 0230 hours, air-to-air friction. 2 Venezuelan F-16s, scrambled from El Libertador airbase, are now supersonic and closing on the extraction force. They are angry and they are armed. They are within 40 miles. This is the moment where World War III could start. If they fire on U.S. helicopters, the U.S. Navy will be forced to shoot them down. The voice of the air boss from the USS America cuts through the International Guard frequency. Unknown aircraft, you are closing on a protected coalition formation. Turn heading 180 immediately, or you will be engaged. To underscore the threat, a flight of 4 F-35Bs decloaks. They open their internal weapons bays, revealing AIM-120 AMRAAM missiles, and paint the Venezuelan F-16s with their targeting radar. The Venezuelan pilots, seeing their RWR, radar warning receiver, light up with the signature of a 5th-generation fighter they cannot see, realize they are already dead if they proceed. They break formation. They turn back. The crisis de-escalates by a razor's edge. 03 hours. Recovery. The lead Blackhawk calls wheels down on the deck of the USS America. The package is delivered. Medical teams rush to check the HVT. The operators, covered in dust and adrenaline, finally safe their weapons. The entire operation, from the first rotor blade crossing the coast to the final landing, took exactly 60 minutes. In 1 hour, the command structure of a sovereign nation was dismantled. The tanks at Fuerte Tiuna stop their engines. The F-16s land. Silence returns to Caracas, but the power dynamic has shifted irrevocably. The lightning strike was successful not just because of the bravery of the men on the ground, but because of the seamless, terrifying synchronization of a modern military machine fighting as one single organism. With the tactical dust settling and Nicolas Maduro in U.S. custody, we must now pivot to the strategic earthquake this operation has triggered. Why did the United States choose to act now, after years of sanctions and diplomatic stalemates? And more importantly, what does this mean for the global balance of power? To understand the timing, we have to look past the official press releases about drug trafficking. While the indictment was the legal vehicle, the strategic engine driving this decision was almost certainly the concept of great power competition. For the last decade, Venezuela has served as a forward operating base for America's primary adversaries within the Western Hemisphere. Russia has used Venezuelan airfields to rotate nuclear-capable Tu-160 bombers. China has utilized Venezuelan geography to establish satellite tracking stations that monitor U.S. space launches from Florida. Iran has used the country as a logistics hub for its proxy networks. By executing Operation Lightning Strike, the Pentagon has effectively enforced the Monroe Doctrine with a level of kinetic aggression we have not seen since the invasion of Panama in 1989. The message sent to Moscow and Beijing is crystal clear. The Caribbean is not an open ocean for your expansion. It is a fortress, and the U.S. Navy holds the keys. This operation exposes a critical weakness in the Russian alliance network. For years, the Kremlin promised security guarantees to Caracas. They sold them the S-300s. They sent Wagner Group contractors to serve as bodyguards. Yet, when the U.S. Navy moved in, Russia did nothing. Why? Because they couldn't. Bogged down in Eastern Europe, the Russian military lacks the blue water naval projection capability to challenge a U.S. amphibious ready group in the Caribbean. This non-response destroys the myth of Russian protection. It signals to other regimes relying on Moscow, from Syria to parts of Africa, that when the chips are down, the cavalry is not coming. However, the fallout will be severe. We must anticipate an asymmetric response. We are unlikely to see a direct military retaliation, but we should expect a surge in gray zone warfare. We will likely see an uptick in cyber attacks against U.S. critical infrastructure, potentially originating from Russian or Iranian state-sponsored groups. Diplomatically, China will almost certainly use this event at the United Nations Security Council to paint the United States as a rogue aggressor, attempting to rally the global South against what they will term Western imperialism. Furthermore, we must analyze the internal vacuum in Venezuela. The decapitation strike doctrine, removing the head of state, is a high-risk gamble. History, from Iraq to Libya, teaches us that removing a dictator does not guarantee stability. It often invites chaos. The Venezuelan military is now a headless snake. We may see a fracturing of the armed forces, with some units surrendering to the transition government and others morphing into warlord-led insurgencies. The U.S. Southern Command must now be prepared not just for combat, but for a massive humanitarian stabilization mission to prevent a total state collapse that could send millions more refugees flooding towards the U.S. border. In the grand chessboard of 2026, Operation Lightning Strike is a pivot point. It marks the end of the post-Cold War era of American passivity in Latin America. It demonstrates that despite the rise of near-peer competitors, the United States retains the unique capability to project overwhelming force anywhere, anytime, with impunity. The question remains, was this a surgical cure for a regional cancer, or was it the opening shot of a much larger, bloodier conflict for control of the Western Hemisphere? In conclusion, the events of the last 24 hours have rewritten the history books. Operation Lightning Strike was a masterclass in modern joint force warfare. We witnessed the seamless integration of cyber warfare to blind the enemy, electronic warfare to silence their defenses, and elite special operations to execute the capture. The U.S. Navy and Marine Corps demonstrated that the concept of the Lightning carrier, the USS America loaded with F-35Bs, is not just a theory, but a lethal reality capable of toppling regimes. The extraction of Nicolas Maduro proves that in the age of stealth and speed, no fortress is impregnable, and no distance is too great. As we watch the situation in Caracas unfold, one thing is certain: the world has just been reminded of the raw definition of naval power. We will continue to monitor the movement of the U.S. fleet and the inevitable diplomatic storm that will follow. If you want to stay ahead of the news cycle with deep-dive technical analysis that you won't find on mainstream media, make sure you smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is Naval Power and Tech, keeping you informed, keeping you ready, over and out.